the journalists who gave their lives to report from the war zones of the 21st century. I have been a war correspondent for most of my professional life. It has always been a hard calling, but the need for frontline objective reporting has never been more compelling. Covering a war means going to places torn by chaos, destruction and death, and trying to bear witness. It means trying to find the truth in a sandstorm of propaganda, and yes, it means taking risks. Our mission is to report these horrors of war with accuracy and without prejudice. We always have to ask ourselves whether the level of risk is worth the story. What is bravery, and what is bravado? I should be honest with you. When I heard the news that Marie Colvin, the journalist, had been killed whilst covering the siege of Homs in Syria, I barely registered the story. In fact, I had never heard of Marie Colvin. She died whilst fleeing an unofficial media building which was being bombed by the Syrian army. And as the story of her death unfolded, I discovered how incredibly important Marie's life had been. She did not merely spectate, but bore into the heart of international conflicts and stood behind the picket line of the Arab Spring protests with little regard for her own personal safety and well-being. In 1999, in East Timor, she saved the lives of 1,500 women and children from a compound besieged by Indonesian-backed forces. In 2001, she lost the sight in her left eye due to a blast from a Sri Lankan army rocket-propelled grenade, and thereafter wore an eye patch. Post-traumatic stress disorder, 2 failed marriages, and a 3rd husband who killed himself in 2002, I was in awe of how a human being could endure so much and yet still go back for more. I tried to imagine circumstances under which I would sacrifice so much. I knew that good journalism had huge value in society and that a world without it is a very dangerous one. But to persistently put oneself in the line of fire for a story, what good would that do? From all accounts of Marie, it seems that she was not a reckless woman, and she was not fearless, rather courageous. And her courage came from a passionate belief that stories could bring about change, that reporting could curtail the excesses of brutal regimes, that bearing witness to the extremes of humanity could extinguish Western apathy. The flow of information from Homs dried to almost nothing immediately following the death of Marie Colvin. And if Homs remains silent, how easy it will be for us to turn our backs. Out of sight, out of mind. And I'll admit it, with so many cries for mercy, for compassion, for justice in the world, I often want to turn my back and turn the deafening roar into white noise. Marie didn't, though. Marie had a gift. She heard the deafening roar and she was able to pick out the individual voices from the din. She knew it was the individual voices that mattered, that to give one corpse out of 1,000 a name and an identity, so that in him we saw our father, our brother, or our son, was so much more valuable than reeling off the numbers of the dead for 100 atrocities. In Marie's final dispatch, published in the Sunday Times on the 19th of February 2012, I was not surprised to see the same spirit of protest in which she chose to live her life. It is the barely concealed outrage of this article that is the reason that I'm standing before you here today. As international diplomats dither, the desperation in Baba Amir grows. The despair was expressed by Hamida, 30, hiding in a downstairs flat with her sister and their 13 children after 2 missiles hit their home. The kids are screaming all the time, Hamida said. I feel so helpless. She began weeping. We feel so abandoned. They've given Bashar al-Assad the green light to kill